Well, hello there. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Full Quota podcast. Let me put that up there a little bit longer. My name is Mpho and Tim. I've got Tim Delays here with me. This is your number one cricketing podcast in South Africa. If you want to know all things happening in domestic cricket, in the Proteas, in anything regarding South African cricket, we even delve into some boardroom issues. We can, if you want us to. Please do follow us on the Full Quarter Pod on Twitter, as well as on YouTube at One World Sports Radio, as well as the audio versions. If you want to listen to audio podcasts, because you are like me, like an audio version, Full Quarter Podcast on Apple and Spotify. It's been an intriguing week for South African cricket. I'm going to talk about that and everything else, as well as today's show is the New Zealand South Africa Test review, as you saw in the thumbnail. So we are going to delve deeper into all of that, trying to get a sense of what happened. What were we expecting? Did we get what we expected? Didn't we? Were we hoping for something else? Because they do say it is the hope that kills. But before we do anything, Tim, how are you doing?
Despite the series loss, which is still hurting, everything's fine, mate. Everything's fine. All good.
Okay. Everything good. Let's get through what happened this week before we do anything else. So this week was an interesting week. We've also got the South African Proteas women in Australia, and they lost badly to the Australian women. They lost by an innings in 284 runs. We saw some fighting half centuries from Dalmarie Tucker, Chloe Tryon, who just gave us something there when we needed to get, what was it, 499 to win the game. In that, well, not even to win the game, to just get Australia to bat again.
And it looked, to bat again.
Yeah, and it looked really horrible at, what was it? It was 3 for 13. And then Tasman Brits scored a 32 of 127 balls, 31 of 127 balls, which also needs to be applauded. Then Dalmarie Tucker, as well as Chloe Tryon, just holding on for dear life. Well, not necessarily dear life, but just trying to help,
put some respectability on the score.
Yes. Respectability is what you call it, but still 284 innings defeat. An innings in 284 defeat is something we need to talk about. It's obviously part of the entire series, and I think South Africa lost 10-4 or 10-6. I don't know what the final number was in terms of how they tallied up, because they do it across the entire series. So the T20s and ODIs count too. We won 2 games out of that, T20 and ODI. That's a positive. But all the other games, you could see the gulf between us and Australia, and most definitely you saw that gulf between us and Australia in the Test match, which there's a couple of things that we need to get right. Fast bowling, we need a bowler who can bowl at least above 110, close to 115. And I look at the Australian players and I'm like, but we've got those players here. Why can't we bring them in? And it's chalk and cheese in the longer format of the game. If you can't bowl fast, if you can bowl between 100 and 110, it's a little bit easy for the batters to get themselves in. And we saw that because we had Australia in trouble at a point, and then they came back, and you saw a double century for Annabelle Sutherland, and it was all she wrote from there. Alyssa Healy, 99, caught and bowled Dalmarie Tucker, who looked really good in this game with bat and ball. But Annabelle Sutherland, 210 of 256. Yeah, she really hurt us there when we had them. What was it? 3 for 12. We had them 3 for 12. And it just we couldn't build on that. We were 4 for 167, so you still think you can run away, but
hello, I can't hear you.
Sorry, my mic. I'm having issues with the mic this side. Yeah. So, but nothing helps when you obviously put up 25. This team is Laura Wolfart, the Marzan Cup, and then it's Chloe Tryon, and then there's everyone else. And if those three don't do anything, we find ourselves in a lot of trouble. And we've got some good players after that, but they don't do much. Sine Lease is a problem that we need to talk about, but I think we might need to have a longer discussion around that.
Yeah, look, I I think the important thing here is what you talked about there about Tucker. Tucker wouldn't have played if Marizan Camp was fit.
Yeah.
Now, Tucker should be playing, in my mind. On that performance alone, Tucker should be playing with Cup when she comes back from her illness.
Injury.
So
Yeah.
it shouldn't be a horse for courses action. Um, I get the sense that it's a little bit close shop at the Proteas women, and I don't think it
Mm-hmm.
should be. If you look at domestically, some of our girls ladies are putting in the numbers with the bat and the ball. I know we spoke about a few weeks ago. Faye Tunnicliffe cannot stop scoring. Again, she made 60 of 30 balls yesterday for Western Province. So it's not as if there's not
Mm.
people knocking on the door.
Yes.
I know up north, the javelin thrower, my name
The net
escapes
for
me.
you.
For Jeanette Verlin has been doing well the numbers there with her batting. Um, I just think that there's a bit of a close shop. That's the impression I'm getting anyway. The other question that I would have, and it's because of the failings in that middle order. It's because of Sunil
Mm.
Lewis and company, not just her, but in that middle order there's continuous struggles. I would think seriously about putting Laura in the middle order. You can't afford to lose Laura so cheaply, so quickly, and that happens when you open the batting. You open the batting, you get a great ball. She got an absolute peach in this test match. Nobody could put it, everybody would have got out to that. It's an absolute peach. Pitch middle, moving away, went through to the keeper. I would be thinking seriously about putting her at 4 and try to get the best out of her, give her time to build an innings, rather than expose her
Yeah.
at the top when we are struggling in the middle order.
Yeah. No, it's tough. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to fix it because I think for me, as I've always said, this team feels like it hasn't moved. And you know, there's no improvement in the test matches. Last year didn't change much when we played England. Now it's a much even bigger situation. Obviously, last year you had Shibnam, you had Marazan. Now you didn't have both, and you are really going to a point where Marazan could retire anytime soon. I know she probably might not, but she could. And you find yourself in a situation where what do you have after this? Delmarie Tucker, really good, love it. But I think we need to have a very frank conversation about that batting lineup and also the bowling, and figure out what we need to do there, and also the keeping duties. Sinala needs to add something with the bat, and I don't know how we can do that because you need someone who can bat and keep wickets, or
I think
contribute.
we need to get the S under 19 girl, mess her in. She might be a little bit too soon for her,
She's
but it's worth taking
16.
a risk. It's worth taking the risk from her.
Let her get her education, guys. Please, let's get her. Let her get her education, and then we can decide that. But we also need to figure out what we're doing on the fast bowling. I'm really saddened by the fact that we've produced medium paces over the last 10 years, and there was no emphasis on fast. Obviously, Marizana's fast, but we need someone else. Aya's fast, but she doesn't play thingy. She's more of a change bowler, and she can't crank it up to those paces that Marizan. The Ayanda Khubi still needs to be developed and still needs to grow into a body. So you don't know how that's going to turn out, and so I'm just disappointed. But anyway, let's move on to the other news for the week. We have Northern Cape beating Limpopo was an interesting game there, Tim. They beat Limpopo to make sure that they make it to the 4-day series final against the Knights, which starts on Saturday. Great season from Limpopo. I sat there thinking, could they do it? Could they not? But Northern Cape just know how to do this 4-day series thing.
Limpopo have been phenomenal. We spoke to Gordon Parsons at the beginning of the season, and he just arrived, and he'd literally been there for like a couple of weeks. So he was just finding his feet in all things Limpopo, and he's turned that side around like there's no tomorrow. He's been sensational. Uh, it's a real shame because all they needed was a draw.
Yeah.
If that last day had just had rain the entire day, they would have made the final, which would have been a fantastic story for the province. It really would have been. I mean, look, I don't want to take anything away from Northern Cape because they know how to behave in games where they have to win. I don't think they've been at their best throughout the season, but when it matters, when they need to win, they find a way. And they've got a lot of experience in that. But I think Limpopo should be really proud of their performance. They finished third in the table with a lot of less experience, with a new coach, a lot of players who are new to professional cricket, not just the whole restructuring. They're
Yeah.
new to professional cricket. Gordon wasn't shy to give a few guys debutants throughout the season. But it's the two big unions, isn't it? It's the Knights versus the Northern Cape. They are going to be fighting it out for the trophy.
Look, and if the Knights win, they kind of put themselves in the driver's seat to to get promoted. Then they just obviously need to make sure that they get themselves. They don't play
They don't have
badly
gaps to grip in the
yeah,
T20. Yeah,
in the
yeah,
T20. So it's still a very, very huge game. Lots at stake in that final. And yeah, because Northern Cape didn't do themselves a lot well in the One Day Cup, so they need a very good T20 tournament as well to kind of, I think, effectively they need to win it to give themselves any chance of doing it. But winning this would go a very long way in doing that. So yeah, so that was that. There were a lot of other 4-day Division One games which we'll talk about this week. But the other big thing, obviously, is the first coach for the Proteas, Mike Proctor, first coach in post isolation. He passed away over the weekend, so condolences to him and his family. Mike was from what we hear, because I wasn't around back when he was playing, was a great all rounder. And if he was the one tribute today was or the tribute was if he played in this era, he'd go for a lot of money in T20s because he was a great all rounder, bat and ball, would be destructive with ball and with bat. Yeah,
yeah.
Tim.
He was and a lovely man. I have not heard a single person who has a crossword to say about him. So I think a fantastic cricketer by all accounts.
Mm,
I've been told many stories about his exploits as a player. Um,
yeah.
and but I also think that he did an awful lot for South African cricket post isolation. Um,
Yes.
a lot of coaching clinics around the country, creating opportunities for those who didn't have an opportunity pre-isolation.
Mm.
So I think a really good man, and I think he'll be sorely missed. Yeah. So condolences to him and his family.
Well, not to him, but to his family.
Not to his family, to
'Cause
his family.
he can't hear our
Yes,
condolences, but
yes.
to his family. Okay, we're here to talk about what happened in New Zealand. So let's review the it's not drama. I like saying drama, but let's review what happened in New Zealand. South Africa went to New Zealand with what many thought was a C string squad, and they thought, and the thinking was the batting was good enough to keep us in games. The bowling was somewhat the worry, and the thinking was if you could just get a draw. Just get something out of the game. You could of one of the two games you could find yourself in there. First game came and went. Kane Williamson, Richard Ravindra came, and our bowlers didn't come through. Our captain, who is a part-time spin bowler, actually not part-time in domestic cricket. He's an option, which says a lot. He took 6 wickets in the game. South Africa lost by a whole lot. They came back 6 days, well, about 4 or 5 days later, and they tried. They were valiant. This time was a much better effort. David Bedingham scoring 100. There was a point there for a couple of hours where South Africa in control of the game, and then at the start of day 3, that control just kind of went away with Kane Williamson just taking the game away from South Africa, and South Africa losing by 7 wickets in that second test match. Interesting enough, obviously, there's a lot of talking points that we need to talk about. There's a lot of questions, Tim, around obviously this series, but we saw a lot of debutants get a chance, a lot of guys who wanted to see in the Proteas periphery or in the Proteas setup, and they were given a chance. Eddie Moore, Reinhard van Tonder, Neil Brunt was given a chance in the resignation of Dean Elgar. You are looking for an opener. He didn't do himself a lot of favors with the bat, but with the ball gives you something intriguing. Look at Ruan de Swart, who I think put his hand up a lot more. David Bedingham was the one who effectively took his chance, scoring a century, showing that he is good for this setup. Tepo Moreki, just a hard worker, just hard. Just this level's a little bit too high for him. Sean von Berg, just second game didn't get a wicket at all. Was a good call from Shukri to bring him in as the second spinner, and the second attacking option, because Duan Olivier just couldn't take any wickets. Yeah. What did you make of the series, Tim? And which debutants impressed you?
Yeah, like so, it was the expected result. I think we did say, even with the setup, we thought there was a chance we could get something, but that chance relied an awful lot on the top 6 outperforming themselves, and a bit of rain. If we're honest, we needed to have some rain across the 2 test matches to give us something from the series. If we're honest,
Yeah.
I think that there is a general disappointment. I don't think we can sit there, and I think there is a general disappointment if we focus on the batting at first. One batsman, no, 2 batsmen passed 50 in that top 6.
Yeah.
One of them got 100, and that's it. Of those 4 innings, David Bedingham was the top scorer in 3 of those 4 innings. It really did show the difference between performing well domestically, which the top 6 have been doing recently, and then performing at this level. I do think the bowlers in general tried really hard. I really do. I think they gave as good an account as they possibly could. None of them shirked from the responsibility. I thought Dane Patterson and Muriki, the way they kept toiling in, despite not getting the returns. I think on a different day, they get better returns. It's a bit more luck, particularly Dane. I think Dane gets another 3 or 4 wickets overall in the series. So I think they toiled hard. Again, I thought Sean von Berg bowled okay. Didn't bowl brilliantly. He bowled okay.
Yeah.
I think he bowled better than his figures suggest. Dane Pitt was fantastic. Dane Pitt should have played the first test. That's a given. So
Yeah.
it's a mixed bag. I think generally they can feel, I don't know what's the word. In the end they gave a decent account of themselves. I think they did. As a team, decent. They played as a team. They were not individualistic.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you look at the two facets individually, batters will be disappointed that they didn't crack on. The bowlers, they gave as good as they could. They did as well as
Yes.
they could have.
Yeah, look, we obviously were playing handicapped in this test series, effectively with one hand behind our backs. If you want a visual, I'm just disappointed that the batters didn't take an opportunity. This is an opportunity for you to make sure that you stay in the setup going forward. The bowlers themselves, obviously, everyone was a lot aging. A lot of the bowlers had their opportunity and it was done effectively, and many of them thought that their Proteas journey was over. So you don't expect much from them in terms of motivation outside of just stirring the pot, like Dane Pete stirred the pot to the point where everyone's sitting there going, "Is there a place for Dane Pete?" But there isn't. Look, we know that he bowled really well. He should have played him in the first test, but yeah. Tapo Moreki, obviously, you could say he was like one of the other bowlers who is getting into the setup, trying to see. I hope he takes a learning of where the level needs to be. You need to increase your pace. He's got the accuracy. It's just the pace at times. He always had one ball that would surprise the batter, not a consecutive six balls that were quick enough, right? And so for me, he has that. It's those things that he has to learn. But Sean van Berg deserved his test cap in Sri Lanka many years ago. He didn't get it. Finally, he got it. I'm happy for him. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea. Uh, but yeah, look, it was the assumption of if you look at all the bowlers, with Duan going 0 for 138 in the first test, what's your best chance of taking 20 wickets? It's Sean van Berg and Dane Pete.
Yeah.
It's just Sean van Berg just kind of went back to his very young self in terms of that, and kind of yeah, just was disappointing. I think he'll be disappointed in his showing, but yeah, takes a lot of memories. The batters, otherwise, and let's talk about the batters. Obviously, David Bedingham with that 100, that century. He was one of the guys who was already in the Proteas side in the India series. Looks very good. Someone we actually are excited, should be excited about going forward as a Proteas test team, batting at 5. I've seen a lot of things, guys putting him at 3 and trying to fit Rickleton in. No, he bats at 5. Let him bat at 5. That's it. And he's going to bat at 5 at the expense of Keegan Peterson, who I don't think gave himself any chance of staying in the side. I wouldn't be surprised if I see the next test side when we go to the West Indies and Keegan Peterson's not there. So too Zubair Hamza. Zubair might make it as a backup batter, but it's going to be important for him if he's playing this week for the Lions to put down a big score to kind of remind us of what it is, of what he has, because he got starts. And this is the frustration about this entire side, especially in the second test. Neil Brandt, I think Reynard didn't get Neil Brandt got a start. Eddie Moore struggled. Reynard didn't play. Zubair got a start. Keegan also got a start, but they throw their wickets away, chasing wide ones, doing things like that. And yes, Tim?
Reynard, Keegan, and Hamza all got a start in the series. They all got
Yes.
a 30 plus.
Yeah. And to a certain extent that's my worry. It was, I'm looking at someone who's got it. The thing about South African cricket is that I struggle with is that outside of the bowlers, our batters don't have that fire in their eyes, that hunt for wickets, that need to get wickets, right? To get runs, sorry, not wickets. They don't have it like Kagiso and Dale, and you can see Gerald, you can see Marco when you rile him up. He's got it, right? Our batters don't seem to have that. And I was looking for someone with that type of attitude like Dean Alger has, where it's a need to stay in, a need to fight. And if you showed me that, you'd be in. David Bedingham, 100%, he showed us that. He showed us that this is the level he needs to be at, and he can play at this level for a very long time. The others, yes, maybe it's a bit of a step above for a guy like Reynard, who I think has a few more years, but I don't want to see him in the next test squad. It would make no sense. Eddie Moore as well. I think the short ball just bamboozled all of them, and it's fun playing the short ball against Tsepo Mariki, Duano Lufia, and those guys. It's not a good option playing against guys who are bowling 10Ks an hour quicker. Which is also why, like, even now, the final round of 4-day series cricket, right? Everybody's in the country, including the Proteas. There's no T20 tournament. There's nothing happening. Throw Kagiso in there against the Titans. Let's see. Throw Gerald in there. Okay, yes, for the Titans against the Lions, right? Throw all these Protea bowlers in there. I know, obviously, was it the Warriors did that this weekend? They threw Stubbs in and threw all the Proteas. We saw Temba play this weekend. That's what you need. This is if there ever was a chance for you to see if someone is good enough to play for the Proteas, is see what they do against proper Proteas bowling. I know the Western Province did that, and they won very easily. Nandre Berger came back. It was really, really nice there in the Eastern Cape for them. You need that up here. I know the Lions play the Titans. You need that. You need to see that, right? The Dolphins look good. Dan de Pavilon is as pacey as pace can be, and he's doing well. The other thing that irritated me was I didn't understand why they didn't pick Oguhle Clele just for the pace. He's the quickest of the guys that they left behind.
But I tell you, I'll tell you why. He just
Yeah.
came back from injury. He just came back from a long injury. I'm loving him. We will discuss this on later in the week.
Yeah.
I'm loving him. I'm loving the return of him, but I think that's cautious and clever. It's just to say we love what you're doing. It's just too soon.
Yeah. And so I look at that when there's one guy we're going to talk about now is Ruan de Swart. My man, you are there. You have all the attributes. My worry for him is Vian Mulder is playing some other type of cricket. Some really, really insane type of cricket that I can't ignore him. I really can't ignore Vian Mulder right now.
What I'm gonna say
if you wanted a batsman who's going to bat in the top 7 or even the top 6, give you runs and bowl, it's either Neil Brunt, but Neil's batting in New Zealand wasn't great. We'll take his SAA if you ever want him to open for the Proteas, and that spin option. But Ruan de Swart did his reputation a massive, massive service. He's the one guy who I saw had the fire in his eyes for both runs and wickets. And he may not be as talented as a Vian Mulder, but I wouldn't look, if you wanted to give him a chance before you gave Vian a chance, I wouldn't be mad at that. I wouldn't think it'd be a clever move with the way Vian's playing, but Ruan de Swart has put himself there as the number 2 all-rounder, and that's the option, right? We've been looking for someone with Jacques Kallis type attributes, or maybe a Jacques Kallis from Wish, not respectfully. He could be that guy, that poor man's version of Jacques Kallis, who can give you Mark Boucher-esque numbers with the bat, average 30, 35, right? Maybe even push 40. Maybe let's say that. Let's put that average at 40, but also gives you another bowling option that allows you to have another batting option, right? Because you can then still have Marco at 7, right? And you have this guy at 6. And it gives you flexibility, because then you can even just have Kagiso, Anweg, Marco, and then a spinner, so that's your 8, 9, 10, 11, and you can have Ruan at 7, and then you can have 6 batters, including a wicketkeeper who should be doing so. You can play with a lot of that, and he gives you something. He bowls a heavy ball. He surprised a lot of the New Zealand bowlers, batters, and then he can hang around, right? And it just makes everything look good. Whereas right now, Vian Mulder is scoring hundreds, and you're going to slot him in at 7, and like that's my next test team is Vian Mulder and Marco Jansen playing together in the Caribbean, and then you have to decide who your other 3 bowlers are going to be. And then you have to decide what 1 to 7 looks like, right? But Ruan de Swart, I've seen you. We acknowledge you. We were unfamiliar with your game, but man, you took your opportunity and you ran with it. And he's the only. Obviously, we knew what Betters was, but this guy's a bright light. He's the bright light you take away from this tour. Tim, from a batting perspective, Obviously, you're disappointed with the guys. What do you think? Why do you think they were so underwhelming?
So I think if we look at the top there, Eddie and Neil Brunt are just not quite there. For a range of reasons. I know Eddie
Mm,
moved down to the Cape because he wanted to be exposed more, he wanted to be seen more. Eddie wants
mm,
to play for the Proteas. That's where he wants to be there. He absolutely is determined to be a fixture in the Proteas setup. He's just not there yet. If he's honest, he's not doing the numbers, and he just doesn't quite have it at the moment.
mm.
Um, he seemed to be very nervous, which was understandable. Neil, I know that Shuku likes Neil. I know that, and I like Neil. Having that spin option is very useful. But if he's going to be your test opener, his technique's got to be better for me.
Yes,
That's my problem.
yes, yes, most
At that
definitely.
at
Yeah,
that level, you can't be playing that
across
wide
the
of the
line.
steps so
Mm,
often and across the line like that. You just can't be playing in that fashion at that level, that next level up. So I think, well, I think Eddie could potentially in 18 months, if he has a really good season next season, could come back into the four. Um, I do think that Neil, this is
this is
Neil's
his chance.
this is Neil's rainbow. He's done it.
Yeah.
He's
This
achieved it.
was this
So
was this was the ability for him to parachute himself into a few more years as a Proteas opener, and he just didn't take that chance.
yeah,
And for
yeah,
me, that was what the carrot that was dangling over all of the batting lineup.
yeah,
Right? It was play well. You've got yourself for 2 years in the Proteas setup, playing Test match cricket, traveling the world, and you just didn't take it. And
yeah,
it kind of tells you, where they are. Whereas you look at guys like Sarro, right? Sarro was benching for this team for years, but when he got his chance, he took it. He scored 100 in New Zealand, and he went on to spend 2 more years in the Proteas setup, right? Only age was probably what kind of stopped his move, but and to a certain extent, you have to make the selectors have a headache, and
yeah,
Bidders is already
they
in,
do.
so there's no headache there.
Yeah,
It's easy then for them to say to Keegan Peterson, well, New Zealand was a chance, you didn't take it. Um, was it
that's the
Zubair?
disappoint.
Yeah,
That's the disappointment for me. It's the Keegan and Hamza show.
yeah.
That was the disappointment for me. Those two players with Bertiem, with the way they play, so they play positive cricket. They play
Hmm.
forward thinking cricket. All three of them like to score runs. They like to get on the front foot. All three of them took it too far in this series.
Hmm.
Bertiem corrected that. He said himself, I played too freely in the first innings. I had to rein it in a little bit the second. Rein it in a little bit, got his 100. The other
Hmm.
two did not rein it in. They played their natural game that they play at full day cricket, which is fine. But when
Yeah.
you get that step up, you've got to rein it in. You can't be that loose at that next level. That next level is that next level harder. So you've got to, at times, rein in your natural attacking,
Hmm.
positive attitude. And they didn't. They're both now
Yeah.
at an age where they should know that. They're not 19, 20, 21, 22, so you can't say it's youthful exuberance. It's poor batting. It's poor
Yeah.
batting from both of them across the series.
Yeah. Look,
Not
and
just
and
that,
and
but there's the shot making as well.
there's that I can't get over that dismissal. Um, Keegan Peterson's dismissal chasing a wide one, and you kind of sit there going, but when you played against India 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, whatever, however, it was 22
2020. Yeah,
when India were here, or 21,
yeah,
whatever that year was. Yeah, everything post 2020 was just weird. This is the blob. Um, he was a lot more compact, a lot more. Yes, obviously it's a different regime, and we're focusing a little bit more on strike rates and trying to be. But that shot to get out chasing a wide one just was so un Keegan Peterson esque, but it kind of gives you a sense of where his game is now. Maoni Warriors, you've got Rickleton, you've got Stubbs, you've got all these people knocking on the door, and there's only 7 spots, 6 spots, and you are sitting in one of them. And now you got dropped for the India game, the second one, even though you literally, I think, batted only once or something weird like that. And that kind of said a lot. And then they get dropped. Then you get 2 chances, 4 chances in New Zealand, and you do nothing. That bothered me a lot. Zubair Hamza, he, I, I'm still 50-50. Very beautiful guy to watch batting, but still throws it away. India A threw it away. He was a 30. He looked like he could bat on that square, which had so much moisture after the rain. Nobody could bat on it, but he was busy throwing it away. He got to 32 and then threw it away. Same thing here in New Zealand. It was like, okay, same old, nothing changes. Yeah, and it's kind of sad because, that's the opportunity. I'm not saying the opportunity is closed, but there's guys in and around here that people are looking at. Tristan Stubbs is now being turned into a test player. He's playing really well, having a great season. Matthew Bretzke, a lot of people want him in. Jordan Harman is hanging around over everyone's heads as a possible look. If they went to Jordan Harman as the opener to go after Dean Alga, we'd all understand, but put something down to say, but I scored 100. I scored runs in New Zealand, right? And you didn't. And that was the sad part. But let's move on let's talk about the coaching. There's a lot of own goals that happen from a management perspective and a coaching perspective. Obviously, CSA, hold your hand up for the debacle of the dates and everything else and not being able to get a full strength side. Do you think Shukri kind of held himself tied by not being able to change the team by announcing it in December already instead of like early Jan or mid Jan?
I think, and I went back to the podcast that we had with Dane Pete and his subsequent press conferences that he's had throughout the series. I think that was a masterstroke because, as Dane Pete said, how often do you get a team, an international team, to spend 3 months with each other? They were with each other right throughout that West Indies A series, all the way through to this series. So they became accustomed to each other's mannerisms and different character. They built themselves around each other. They had a real togetherness. There was no sort of complaints. There was no sort of stuff coming out for the camp that people were unhappy. Everybody was buying into what Shukri Conrad was coming up with. So I think it was a masterstroke. I think they did in terms of that, in terms of when the team was selected, and in terms of the squad that was actually selected. I think they did everything they could to get out of something out of the series. I think there were mistakes made while we were in New Zealand. That's my worry. Is that mistakes were made?
My thinking, and we spoke, my thinking, we spoke about this, right? There are a couple of things, right? Announcing a team in December kind of hamstrings you. And I know you were with the guys for a very long time. I get it. But there's no room for change, right? For instance, Clyde Fontaine had, outside of Duan Olivier, I think Duan had the most disappointing tour. Clyde Fontaine is right there, number 2. And I can't get out of them pushing him to open. That was like, what's going on now? And he played like he was a middle to lower order batter. He saw a wide one and he chased it. And it was uneventful from a Clyde Fontaine perspective. But like I said, there's many other wicketkeepers in South Africa. If you want them to do the same job Clyde was doing, there's many other wicketkeepers in South Africa who have done it and probably even scored you more runs. Opening 2. But that's not, and that's the other thing about Oguhle Cele, right? Because Oguhle played in the final 2 matches in December. on the 4-day series. So I know he came back from injury for a really long time, but he played in December. He's fit. He played 4-day games. He went through a 4-day series. We thought there might be a 15th player coming in, right? And then they used that for Eddie Moore. But we could have done a really, really intriguing job in New Zealand, right? Could have lit up something, could have, started something. And he's a young bowler, right? So there's more runway going forward compared to all the other guys you have in New Zealand. So that bothered me a lot, around that selection date. I understand you knew who was going to New Zealand. We get that, but give yourself time to make the best decision and look at your team and figure out where the deficiencies are. The question of 20 wickets, the question of lower order batting. Am I getting all my runs from everybody, right? Tapang Ditole is there. You can look at his numbers. He's having a great season. Lesego Senokwane is there. He's a really good young batter, wicketkeeper as well. Could have given him a chance, right? And it just bothered me. Also, Rivaldo Munsami, who can keep and is the number one run scorer in the 4-day series, and you left him at home. You left the number one run scorer in the 4-day series at home, and that for me was yes, they may not have been in your plans September, October, but when you look at December and you look at the stats, you're like, who's number one on the run scoring charts? Why isn't he there? Right, and so that's where my thing was with all of that, and then looking into New Zealand, Tim, the decision not to play Dame Pete, the decision to bowl first and try and elongate the game. I should really like to use this analogy of we're Burnley going up against Liverpool. I didn't like that a lot. Kind of made it seem as though we'll go. Yes, implicitly in his head he's going for the draw, but we go there to win. Yeah, those decisions in New Zealand bothered me. The Clyde Fontaine opening was just, it was like, okay, we're now are running out of options. We sat in the team meeting and we said we can't beat this team, so we need another bowler in there, and we're taking away a batter, and we're pushing the guy who's probably not the most talented batter on tour, and you're pushing him to open as though effectively giving him a walking wicket. You're not getting the best out of Clyde, and that was the unfair part for me for him, was just leave him where he was. Just let Reynard open. Like, we'd understand Reynard opening because he's the first drop, right? So yeah, I don't know, Tim, but like, let's talk about those decisions in New Zealand.
Yeah. So I just before we do, I agree wholeheartedly. Despite what I agree with what I said, but of course the big one was the wicketkeeper. The wicketkeeping decision just made no sense. I tried to put a positive spin on it because he had a good domestic season last season. This season it's been a horror show for him. He's been way out of form. Clyde in the 4-day series. So going with him, it just didn't make sense as to a frontline keeper. But yes, so moving forward, again, yeah, it doesn't send a good message for me when you win the toss and you bowl. It doesn't send a good message. It says to what is actually our strength. Actually, we actually don't actually trust you. I know that's not what he's saying, but that's what it says to me from the outside.
Yeah, it obviously doesn't want to put them under pressure, but that's what we need them to be there for. I thought if we could score 300, which we nearly got there in the second innings of the second game, you give yourself a chance. Even 250, you give yourself a chance, right? But you can't allow New Zealand to run away with the game with the bat. The moment they saw that large total, I think it was just over 500. What are the guys going to do? Like, really? Like, these guys are not seasoned internationals. They are guys who are looking to get a chance in. And now you're telling them, well, there's the bar, 512. Right? And it backfired completely, right? And the other thing is, so the other thing this thing kind of tells me is, does Shuki not get live stats, weekly roundup of what's happening in domestic cricket? Because surely when Rivaldo Moonsami scored those bucket loads of runs, I think one of them was a double century.
Well,
Um,
I'm assuming we're still assigned with Stats Perform. Stats Perform was supposed to provide him with all that. They are supposed to
no,
provide him.
but you're making a decision. You're sitting down. You're picking the team for the West Indies because we had a problem with the West Indies because Rivaldo should have been there. We were like Clyde. Maybe it's another. I know the guy. I played with him. That type of a character pick, right? But it didn't turn out to be a great character pick. His glove work, I can't fault. It was perfect. Like can't fault his glove work. Um, but I'm sitting there going, but dude, when you guys are sitting in the selection committee, are you not looking at, like, for instance, the Eddie Moore pick was weird for me, largely because Eddie had a very quiet season last year. Yes, this year he's doing something. But if you were going to pick an opener in South Africa who was available at the time, and I know you guys are going to say I'm a homer, it's Joshua Richards. And he plays on the bounciest wicket of them all. So if you're worried about pace and bounce, pick someone who can do pace and bounce. But it's fine. It's okay. But it kind of gives me a sense that he's not looking at in-season stats. Even the fact that Ogutle Kele was available. Like, so for instance, right, this is how I do it. I don't know if he did it, but I'm assuming he did. How I do it was like, I have buckets of players that are available, and especially with the bowlers, it's what you're bowling, how many kilometers per hour, and you like have a line, and you put all the bowlers, and your line is about 135 kilometers per hour. And then you put guys above and below the line. And if they're guys below the line that you want to go above the line, you need to ask yourself why you want them above the line. So, for instance, you take a Duan because Duan's short balls are just deadly. He's like Neil Wagner, right? Neil Wagner bowls around about 130, but his short balls are just deadly, right? And then you push him up, right? Tipu Mariki, hard worker, accurate enough. If you get yourself, he can get you in trouble. He can be that guy who holds up an end. So obviously we put him up there, right? But you've got a Gutle Kele. You've got Lucho Sapamla. Obviously Lucho's injured, so that's fine. But he's fit now. But yeah, and you have Kele. You put all the guys there, and you try to figure out. And that bothered me. That I kind of sit there going, but this season, guys are performing, but you're not picking guys who are performing this season. You're picking guys who you've thought of, who've heard about over the past 4 years. Eddie Moore had a slump. Reinhard van Tonder left the club. His team got relegated. If he was that good, he would have scored enough runs to help his team get more draws or more wins, right? And I'm not saying it's his fault that the Knights got relegated, but there's a reason why they got relegated. Now he's in the Northwest, scoring a little bit of runs here and there. Why are we giving him a chance? Right? And it's those things. And it's going to be interesting to see how he handles Ryan Rickleton going forward, how he handles Vian Mulder going forward, because you can't deny those guys a spot in the team. You picked Tristan Stubbs, Tristan scoring runs, right? But he scored runs in like 2 games, right? Ryan's been doing it consistently for the past 2 years, right? How does Stubbs get a call up before Rickleton? Right? And it's those types of things that make us question what's going on in terms of the thinking around there. Is he getting the right information? Is CSA not providing him with the right information? Does he need to go out and watch? Because we've got stuff on YouTube for him to watch.
I was gonna say he doesn't need to go and watch. I'd love him to go and watch, but what he needs a trusted individual, just a couple of people, go and watch Prophets against Titans, and tell me what's happening. No,
Tim,
you need somebody.
The easy one is to call each of the coaches after every week and say, like this week the Titans are playing the Lions. You call up Russell Domingue and be like, hey Russ, who in the opposition caused you the most problem this side?
Yeah.
If I was looking for somebody, who would you tell me to do? It's a simple thing. And then Russ would be like, hey man, that joke could see a boy. Hey, do you ever who's the wonder kid from MI Cape Town? Devo Brevis. Oh, he's so cool. He's good. We couldn't get Munsami out. We tried everything. Short ball, this, that, next thing. And it's simple. It's 6 phone calls a week on a Monday, 30 minutes each. And it will give you an insane database to be like, yeah, fine. Look, like I understand all the guys he picked. I didn't have. I was like, okay, I get it. It felt like it was more of a historical pick rather than a recent one. The Zubair Hamza one was recent, but it's crowded in historical bias because he didn't have a great September, October. He only started scoring runs in November and December, right? Even in the South Africa A game, he didn't score runs, right? And I know Ryan Rickleton didn't score runs against India A. Get that. But the man is number 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever that number is right now in the runs charts in the 4-day series. So what are we doing? Like, how are we, and how are we doing this? Like, for instance, Neil Brunt's the wrong Titan. It's Munsami. But I get why you picked Neil Brunt because of the captaincy. 100% get it, right? So I just don't know, Tim. I just kind of was sitting there going, but this is not the optimal way of doing things. I understand there's a character play, and a lot of those guys are character guys. But there's a point where character takes you so far. Tapo Mariki saw that, number one. Loved him, ran with his heart out, but it took him so far. Ron de Swart, his character kind of carried him, then the talent kicked in, and now the question is, how high is your ceiling? Right? And to a certain extent, that was a Clyde Fortin pick. It was like, character guy, I love him. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a soldier. He'll run through a wall for you. But we saw quickly that the character can take you so far. And to a certain extent, that's what this team kind of reminded me of. It was like, oh, we're picking guys who are great characters. They've done stuff. They put numbers down, but they got found out at the highest level. The batters themselves have the ability to play in the highest level. They just were making wrong decisions. And the question for me then, do I want guys who don't know how to take the opportunity? Because I look at that West Indian boy, the fast bowler who was a security guard. Joseph. Yes, Shamar Joseph. I nearly called him Shamar Brooks, but that's another key guy who didn't take his opportunity. Just take it. And is there no urgency? Is there no incentive for our batters in domestic cricket to be like, I want this? And it's funny because there are guys who didn't go there who are like, I'm putting down the numbers. I'm averaging 40 opening in South Africa, yet you took Eddie Moore. And for me, that's something that we need to be worried about with Shukri, and something that we need to fix in terms of maybe a little bit of realignment, maybe getting back a selection panel or getting him another person in there, because this is sacrilegious. It makes no sense. Eddie Moore was out of form. Like, over the past 2 years, you wouldn't pick Eddie Moore. We had already gone past him. But the great thing is that they didn't pick Yanaman Malano, they didn't pick Peter Malan. So I'm happy about that. That's the only great thing I'm happy about on this tour, Tim.
There you've hit the nail on the head. And we spoke about this before. We spoke about this when Chukwu got the coaching job, and we were told that he gets carte blanche. What I mean by that is that there are no selectors, and that is problematic. We can put this series with an asterisk because of what happened and the SA20 guys. What is going to be very, very, very important is who gets picked for the West Indies and Bangladesh. That is going to be... You're going to have slower wickets that are going to be conducive to spin bowling. South Africans can't play spin bowling. It's going to be very interesting to see what top six he goes with there. But I think long term, I think there is going to come a cracks where they're going to have to go, Shukri, you need an assistant. You need a one selector. Whatever you want to call him, you need a sounding board.
Or at least someone who's watching film.
Exactly. Somebody there who's giving you a different opinion. You can't just go on what you saw 6 months ago. What you know.
Or what people are telling you when they see you.
Yeah. You know Hamza's a great character. I know he's a great character. But is he the best number 3 or 4 in the country? No, he's not. We need somebody to go to him and say, these are your options. You can go here, you can go Hamza, but there's X, Y, and Z. and this is why you should pick X, Y, and Z because of
Mm.
these attributes. And that's my problem. I I think he's a very good coach. I think he's a very good team builder. I think the way he built within that team, that togetherness was very, very impressive in a very difficult time in a series that we were always probably going to lose. But it does worry me that there is no, I think there's somebody else within the in the talking frame of decision making.
Mm.
So it's going
Look,
to be interesting to see who we pick.
yeah, the way I see it, and I think this is where I think we should end the podcast is one of the good things that Shook showed us is that he can take anybody and try and make them competitive. And I trust his coaching. I trust his man management. I think if we get him the right pieces and if he decides to pick the right pieces, this team could be something else. Because we went to New Zealand, and it's like Mpho going up against Floyd Mayweather. And I'm going to get knocked out. I know that. But damn, on that second day in that second test, I landed a punch that pretty much cut his eye. And that's what South Africa did against New Zealand. There was that window, those couple of hours, and when we went to bed and we woke up and we're like, okay, this day 3 could be it. That's what makes him a great coach. The fact that we had that moment, that we laid a punch on them. They were a little bit 50-50, and it was shaky, and it took a world-class performance to finally beat us. That tells me everything. Yes, maybe you can say we didn't do well. There were many decisions. I'm not gonna judge Neil Brandt on his captaincy decisions because it's a different kettle of fish here. It's not Titans and Lions at Centurion, right?
No.
But look, and they say it's the hope that kills. At the end of that second day, we had hope. In the second test, we had hope. We could have won that game. And
that was it. The team and Shukri created a moment where we believed. We
put themselves in the window to win the game, and it got taken away from them by one of the world's best batters in the last 10 years. So I can't fight it. It's one of those, we're going to forget about this, but it's going to hurt us when we look at that World Test Championship log again. New Zealand now at the top. We've won 1 and 4. They've won 3 and 4 now. So we need to hope Australia steamroll them and that we can then get ourselves back on track against the West Indies and Bangladesh. And if we do that, we give ourselves an enough chance that by the end of the year, I think it's Pakistan at home. And I think Sri Lanka as well. Once we get those 2 out the way, we'll put ourselves in the window to be that second team against Australia at the World Test Championship. Because it's like Australia and India. I think Australia still has to play India somewhere, so that's great. So they're going to beat each other, which is great. But we'll be one of the teams there. And if we had just taken 1 or even a draw, it just gives you a chance. It puts you in there, and that's all you want. But we need to whitewash West Indies, which we can. We need to whitewash Bangladesh, which we can too. And we need to win out now. It's not impossible. A Shukri-led team with all the bells and whistles of a Proteas test side, yeah, they can do it. And yeah, that's the fun part. Tim, we'll forget about this series. We're going to call it the Forgotten Series, but many people made their name. Well, a few people made their name here. And some people managed to get their cap. So congratulations to everyone who got a test cap. It's a great honor, and you should hold it in high regard. But yeah, a 2-0 loss hurts just as much. Any final words, Tim?
No. Just to concur with what you said, and just to let you know that next week, not next week, in a few days, we will be discussing 4-day series. So we're not neglecting it. Not neglecting it. We will be discussing the 4-day series, Division 1
and the possibility that the final could be in Durban again. Because before the franchises, it was in Durban for 2 years in a row. And they might just unleash Keshav Maharaj again on teams, which is a scary prospect. But we're going to talk about that on the next podcast. Outside of that, from us ourselves here at Full Quarter Podcast, it's goodbye and let's sale. Kakahiso.